It was really fun seeing you and your mom chit-chatting about last week's service.
Yeah, that was a fun episode. Well, and you and I had been talking with her and my dad for a while since this started. Well, before this started, when we were still trying to kind of brainstorm ideas, find a way for them to be involved at some level.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my mom was excited to
When we
step
were
in.
when we were taking our step out in faith situation, we're like, but we need a safety net. Do you want to please do this with us?
Yeah,
Which was fun. But it was cute to see you guys together, and it was very informative. And I was happy to see just the interactions you guys had. It's kind of cool to see, like, we have kids, so it's fun to see that, like, you guys were having, as a mom, gives me hope that when all the babies are older, we could sit down and have conversations about Jesus too. But it was really just really sweet to see.
thanks, babe.
Yeah,
But
that's cute.
yeah, so today we're doing another companion,
Yes.
and it's Luke 24, new chapter, last chapter of Luke,
Yeah.
verses 1 through 12, I think it was.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So if you haven't yet, make sure you check out the main message on the church's website or the YouTube channel or the Roku app or any number of ways that you can find the message,
Yeah,
and make sure to watch it. It was a good one.
it was. It was good.
So Pastor Clark started by doing a bit of a breakdown into the last message that he gave, dealing with the trials, everything leading up to the death of Jesus,
Right.
and then including the death of Jesus. Now we have the burial and the resurrection. So,
Yeah, and last week you guys talked about the crucifixion, how the veil was torn, how the darkness was for 3 hours in the middle of the day before night. So that was pretty cool to go over and see just the power of Jesus and what his crucifixion did to the world at that point, which was, that was pretty cool.
yeah, Jesus is truly God of all,
Right.
King of nature, no doubt.
No doubt.
So yeah, nature quaked and had all these weird anomalous events
Right.
at his death. So dealing with the darkness, the veil being torn from top to bottom in the temple, and then we looked at the people surrounding the crucifixion, the centurion, the women that followed Jesus, Joseph of Arimathea, who provided the tomb and cared for the body after the death.
Yeah.
And that's where we pick up with this section in Luke 24:1, is carrying over the women that were watching everything that happened. So it starts by talking about, it was the first day of the week. So I guess the first of 6 points that Pastor Clark talked about was the point in time of the resurrection. Time of week was the first one, and then time of day was the second one. So the time of the resurrection.
Well, Pastor Clark was referencing Luke 24, chapter 1 for the
Yes.
times.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the point in time of the resurrection, and the first thing he looked at was the day of the week.
Right. Which was funny to me because when we first started this a few weeks ago, you were trying to explain to me what feast and what things were coming about, so that way it would be a better understanding. And I was like, yeah. What does that have to do with today? And if I would have paid attention and listened, it would have been beneficial for this message. So you're going to have to go over those feasts again with me.
Well, I would never say I told you so. So I won't.
I just wanted the time. I didn't want to know how that clock was built. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I've been told that many, many times.
Okay. Well, today we'll listen to that clock. Okay.
Yeah.
And how it's built.
So the cuckoo clock, is that...
It turns into that for me sometimes,
Yeah.
but yes.
Well, so the Passover happened on that Thursday, and that was the first feast, right? And then you had the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which started on that Friday, and then you had the Sabbath on Saturday, and then according to Leviticus 23:11, I think it is, that outlines when the Feast of First Fruits occurs. So that happens on the first day after the first Sabbath after the Passover, which would be Sunday. So here, on the first day of the week, which was Sunday,
Right.
And then we find that all that is, it tracks perfectly, because we know that the Passover was on the Thursday that year.
Mm-hmm.
Feast of Unleavened Bread was the next day, so the 14th of Nisan, the
Which would be a
Jewish
Friday.
month. Feast of Unleavened Bread was on Friday. That's
Mhm.
when Jesus died, and that's when we celebrate Good Friday, because it
Right.
truly is a Good Friday.
Mhm.
Because if it wasn't for Jesus' death, there couldn't have been a resurrection, and if it wasn't for his resurrection, as we'll see in a bit, there's no Christianity, there's no salvation, there's no
Right.
getting to heaven for us.
Right.
So the feasts were these interesting things, right? Because Passover celebrates and commemorates the children of Israel escaping death, the angel of death passing over their house because of the blood of a lamb that was on the doorpost and the
Mhm.
lintel.
Back to Moses.
Back to Moses, yeah,
Right.
right before, and the 10th and final plague of Egypt was the death of the firstborns.
Right.
Firstborn children, and the angel of death went into all of Egypt and took every firstborn, unless the blood of the lamb was on their house.
Right.
And then the angel of death passed over their house, and they were saved. And then, as a result of that 10th and last plague, Pharaoh said, "Just get out of here and go."
Right.
And they did. So Jesus was preparing to die on Passover. He was selected as that sacrificial lamb, so eternal death would pass over us because of his blood.
Wow.
The next day, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, when Jesus was buried, that signifies the children of Israel leaving in such a haste out of Egypt that they didn't have time to bake any bread or take anything with them. Just take what you have. You don't have time to let your bread rise. Just take it without the leaven. And that came to be a picture of sin, leaven being a representation of sin. So part of celebrating the Feast of Unleavened Bread was getting rid of all the leaven from your whole house. And that was on the day of preparation, which is that Friday. So on that day, that's when they would get rid of the leaven, which is the sin, and that's the day that Jesus was buried, as he took on our sin. He was buried and put away from the camp, right, as he bore our sin on his shoulders and his body and experienced that separation from God and died so we didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
He satisfied the Feast of Unleavened Bread.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day after the first Sabbath, on the Feast of First Fruits, he conquered death. He was the first fruit of the grave.
Mm-hmm.
And Pastor Clark mentioned that's not because he was the first one to rise from the dead. Instead, Jesus was the first fruit because he was the first one to conquer death of his own power and to never die again.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesus being the first fruit of the grave, fulfilling that feast, which is crazy cool.
Right.
And then the next feast that happens is the Feast of Pentecost,
Mm-hmm.
which looks at Acts chapter 2. The whole point of that feast was to celebrate the law being received by Moses.
Right.
And in Acts chapter 2, on the day of Pentecost, that's when the church got the Holy Spirit and the church was born. So in the ancient times, that feast was because the law, which in Galatians, we see that the law is a school teacher. It points us to Jesus because it shows us we're not perfect.
Right.
It is the barometer to let us know what God's standard is, and nobody can keep the law.
Right.
So we know we need Jesus because of the law. And then on the day of Pentecost, we're celebrating because we get the Holy Spirit because of Jesus. So we are redeemed from the law,
Mm-hmm.
which is great.
Yeah.
So all these different cool feasts have these fulfillments in Jesus.
Right. And then he fulfilled them all by his by the crucifixion and his resurrection,
Yeah.
and then resurrecting to tell people to go out and talk about it.
Yeah, and it's amazing
Mhm.
when you look at the totality of it and you look at the Old and New Testament together.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I do too.
Yeah. So it happened on the first day of the week,
Mm-hmm.
which was Sunday. One thing that was cool, and we talked a little bit about this in the last episode, was when the sky darkened during Jesus's crucifixion.
Mm-hmm.
It was obscured and darkened. There were no stars visible. And in ancient times, the next day started in the evening. Now it's like 6 p.m. But at the time, it was when you could see 3 stars in the sky. But you couldn't see any stars in the sky because it was blackened. So
and that's when people would, historians would say, oh, it was an eclipse or it was an anomaly. But the anomaly, people try to conflate it with an eclipse. But an eclipse doesn't happen all around the world. A full eclipse would only happen within a short period of time in one area of space. So the fact that it was dark everywhere would prove that it's not an eclipse.
Yeah, it was a supernatural event. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. And like we talked about in the last episode, there were historians and documentarians that chronicled the event as it was happening in mainland Europe and in Israel. Right. So they're not in the same time zone. They're not on the same latitudinal line. They would have not experienced the same level of obfuscation of the sky, of obstruction of the sky, if it was just a natural solar eclipse. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, again, the Bible, explains why. And then for the earthquakes and everything to be happening, it was truly because of Jesus's death. So it happened on the Sunday morning.
Yeah. Very early in the morning.
Very early in the morning.
Which stood out to me. The women were the one that were up early in the morning. I tend to be an early riser. I am not. In our house, it's the opposite. The men are the early risers, and the women are not so much.
Yes, that is true. That is so true.
So and I was a little surprised it wasn't the fishermen that usually are up before the wind starts. They're usually up when the water's glossy and
when
glassy.
We were talking about it, it was more like it was this. It was mourning. These women were mourning. They were going through all this stuff, physically, emotionally draining, and then we were talking about it earlier, and we think like we don't even know if they slept, and then if they're with Jesus's mom that whole time too, and these women are just mourning with her and thinking like we have to get up and take care of the body and make sure that thinking of just how women are in general, like, all right, now we have to take care of this, but we don't want our friend to suffer and go through this and see her son like that. We don't want all this. So I'm sure there was no sleep at all. Yeah. Realistically. So it was like, okay, well, let's just go. Let's just get this and just start it. So that way we could, his mom could have peace and maybe we could go and just get the ball rolling.
Yeah, because she wasn't with the women that went to the tomb, like we'll see in a minute.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. But yeah, so it was early in the morning, and the women went to the tomb. Yeah,
super early. Maybe they just weren't able to sleep, and as soon as it was the next day, as soon as it was not the Sabbath anymore, it would have been not the Sabbath Saturday night at 3 stars. Maybe they did kind of doze off a bit finally after probably 2 days of not sleeping, then they woke up raring to go at 5 in the morning, right? And ran to the tomb to see what they could do. Which, let's look at the they. Yeah. So the second point is the people at the resurrection. We see that list is started in chapter 23, verses 55 and 56, where it says, "The women who had come with him, Jesus, from Galilee followed after, and they observed the tomb and how Jesus' body was laid. And they, the women, returned and prepared spices and fragrant oils. And they, the women, rested on the Sabbath according to the custom, or according to the commandment." So that was Saturday. They dozed off Saturday night after they had been preparing all the stuff. And then we have now on the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they, the women that followed Jesus, and certain other women. And then that certain other women list is kind of given a little later on in verse 10, and elsewhere in Scripture. Mark 16 and Matthew 27. Yeah. That's kind of, it's defined. It tells us, so, okay. I'm getting ahead of myself.
I know. It's one of those things where it's like there's so many layers on top of it where you're like, okay, there's the women that are involved. There's other, like the stone that, like, there's so many things. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we got to stay on track.
Yeah, so Mary Magdalene is the
Right.
first one listed here, down in verse 10. And Mary Magdalene,
Mm-hmm.
what do we know about her?
Mary Magdalene was the woman that was possessed
Yeah.
at the well.
Yeah, Luke 8, verse 2
Right.
introduces Mary Magdalene.
Yes. And people like to, we were talking about this earlier as well.
Mhm.
People like to elaborate on her story, or not elaborate, they like to,
They call her, they think she's somebody she's not.
right. So they like to, from the research I've done, they've kind of like married Mary with a bunch of other Marys, with a bunch of other people.
Yeah,
And it was kind of easy to just give Mary, this one person, all these things. So it looks like miraculous, but Mary Magdalene was the woman who was possessed by the well.
right. Yeah, people oftentimes will say, oh, Mary Magdalene was a prostitute,
Right.
which she wasn't. And as far as we know, it's not said anywhere in the Bible. As we were talking, that idea comes up from a pope that got it wrong in like 591 AD. He was given some sermon, and he just, I guess, didn't know the word well enough, and he got the sinful woman from who's that, Luke 7 in 36 to 50, I think it is, and Mary Magdalene from Luke 8, and conflated them with also Mary of Bethany, which is Mary and Martha, the sister of Lazarus. So he kind of merged all these three people together
Right.
and said, oh yeah, Mary Magdalene was all of those things.
Yes.
It's like, well, no, that's wrong, but it persisted.
Right.
A lot of people today still think that,
Right.
1,500 years later.
And
It's crazy.
I can say this off experience. So I have a sister, and so people often say the girls did this or the girls did that. And it's usually, my sister's an angel, a saint, and it's usually me that was the one doing stuff. But my poor sister would get lumped in this category of the girls, and it was like, she had nothing to do with it. That was all me. But so being lumped into a category because we're girls or because we're close in age or because we look alike or whatever, I have had this experience, not saying that I'm Mary or anything like that, but it is funny because I have experienced being lumped into the girls comment or so I feel for this one. So that's why when we started this conversation about Mary, I'm like, that's kind of messed up. She was possessed. She wasn't lumped in because of all these other things that people attribute to her. It was just, she was possessed.
Yeah,
So
totally different.
totally different. So
Yeah, thanks a lot, Pope Gregory.
yeah, geez. Anyways, so Mary Magdalene was there.
And then Joanna.
And Joanna was there. And Joanna, what was her story?
She was the wife
That's right.
of Chuza,
Yes. Chuza.
and he was the servant of Herod Antipas,
Right.
the one and the same Herod that beheaded John the Baptist, and just,
Tried Jesus.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I always wondered if Pilate's wife had a servant, or Pilate had a servant that was friends with Antipas, Herod Antipas's servant, Chuza, and maybe the wives knew each other, and that's how Pilate's wife kind of came to know about Jesus, and she was having these dreams saying, hey,
Well, maybe.
Pilate baby, don't do it.
Maybe because all the women in the Bible seem to all talk, and as we'll see when they do
Wait, time out. Women talk?
they all talk, and just like what Jesus will tell the women, again, getting ahead of ourselves, like go out and tell everybody, like you all
Yeah.
are chit-chatting, now use it as a power and go tell everybody about me. So I think, God gave us a voice and he's telling us to use it quite often. So, so Chuza's wife, Chuza's wife, that's Joanna. So she was there.
She was there. And then Mary, the mother of James.
Mm-hmm. And she often gets confused by Mother Mary, of Jesus' mother.
Yes. Yeah, she gets misidentified frequently.
The girls again.
The girls, but also the Marys.
The
There's a
Mary.
handful of Marys, and there's a handful of Jameses.
Mm-hmm.
So you have James, the half brother of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
You have James, the brother of John,
Right.
and you have James, the lesser.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems that these are all three distinct people
Mm-hmm.
because so breaking that down,
Yeah.
you have James, the son of Alphaeus. That seems to be James the lesser.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be Alphaeus and Mary had the James.
Mm-hmm.
He was younger, he was lesser, usually lesser in age. And then you have James, the half-brother of Jesus. So Jesus' mom, Mary, who was not a virgin her whole life because she had at least 4 other sons,
Right.
had James and Simon and Joseph and Judas. So that James was not one of the 12 apostles. He did, however, write the book of James. And then you have James, the brother of John, or James, the son of...
Mary.
No, son of thunder is where I was going with that.
Like,
James and John, the sons of thunder.
It's usually if you throw out a woman's name in the Bible, Mary might.
It's a good guess, yeah.
Okay, so, and then we see, so Mary, Joanna,
The other Mary,
and now Salome.
Salome, yeah. We get that from Mark 16:1.
Mm-hmm.
Because Salome isn't listed here in Luke,
Right.
but she is listed by name in Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see that Salome in Matthew 27:56 is the mother of James and John, the sons of thunder, sons of Zebedee.
Right.
So it seems that Salome and Zebedee had a James,
Mm-hmm.
Mary and Alphaeus had a James, and Mary and Joseph had a James.
Right.
So those are all the Jameses, and those are all the Marys, and moving on.
Right.
And then other women, certain other
Other
women.
women.
We don't know who the other women were beyond that list that we've
Right.
given, but presumably there were other women. They followed Jesus. They saw everything that happened, and they were going to take care of Jesus. Which, this is where Pastor Clark talked about, when you're following Jesus, you should have a heart to serve Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
If you're truly following him and you're not making it about yourself, it's
Right.
not a got to, it is a get to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to help the church in this way. I don't have to go minister to the body of Christ. I get to. I want to do those things because I understand. These women, they just saw the torture that Jesus went through
Right.
for them.
Right.
And how could you not want to do everything you can
Right.
to build up the body of Christ, knowing what Christ sacrificed for us when he didn't have to?
Right.
He stepped out of eternity for it.
Mm-hmm.
He chose to take on sin and suffer a torturous death so we could be healed by his stripes.
Right.
That's huge.
Right.
So it's humbling,
It
and it
is.
should inspire and motivate us to serve him.
Well, especially like what we saw a few weeks ago too. I mean, he was sweating blood. He knew the pain that it was what was about to happen, and he was still willing to do that for us. I mean,
It's mind-boggling.
yeah, it truthfully is. So, okay, so these are the women that were there, that were already ready to adorn him with the oils and prepare him.
Yeah, kind of the ancient way to embalm a body.
Okay.
Because again, these bodies would stay in the tombs.
Right.
So oftentimes, even though the doors would be shut or the tombs would be sealed by these large stones,
Mm-hmm.
they would still kind of give off a pretty rough smell.
Right.
So a lot of times they would anoint the bodies with these fragrant oils, wrap them in linen that had been soaked in this fragrant oil,
Right.
to kind of help not preserve the body, but
Mask the smell.
mask the smell and make it decompose in a better way.
Okay.
But also, I would think because they wanted to spend any time they could with Jesus as much as they could.
One honor.
Right.
honor the body. And
And they weren't expecting that he rose from the dead
No.
because they had already put that aside.
right.
Even though shortly before he had talked about it, they weren't really focusing on that. As I think is understandable. They were focusing on this torture and this show of a trial, this kangaroo court,
Yeah.
as it were, that, I mean, he was set up to be convicted.
Right. So then they're getting down there, and the stone was rolled away.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and as they were going there, they were thinking, oh man, how are we going to even anoint his
this.
body? How are we even going to, like, do what we are intending to do?
Yeah. How in the world is this going to happen?
Well, because those stones,
Yeah.
4 to 6 feet in diameter, that's big.
Huge.
A foot thick,
Right.
anywhere from 2 to 4,000 pounds.
Yeah.
That's big.
Huge.
I mean,
And then you have a few women, 4 that we named,
yeah,
and then a few others. It took a few men to go and roll it in front of the tomb. So them going up there, it must have been like, okay, like we're going to do our best, and maybe if we just inch it over a little bit, we could squeeze through, get some light in. And then could you imagine walking up to that? So you're kind of like, okay, I don't even know how we're going to do this. And then they get there and it's already rolled away.
yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, they didn't have to lift a finger.
No, not at
Which, that was kind of something that made me think of God providing for us. Like the women, so in Mark 16:3, the parallel account, Mark is explaining that the women were like worried about it. They were talking amongst themselves on their way to the tomb, saying, hey, so remember, there's a huge stone there. What are we doing about that? How are we going to move that? And they were kind of concerned about it.
all. Right.
But they were still going. They still felt called to go anoint the
try.
body, and they still were going to go try. Not of their own, but they were trusting that God would provide a way, and God would do that. And as I was reading that and listening to the message, it made me think of a couple examples in the Bible that that I thought were pretty cool, where God will call us to do stuff, even though we don't think we're ready, we're not prepared, we don't really know the whole plan.
Right.
My first thought was Abraham, or
Right.
Abram, when God called him out of the Ur of the Chaldees, and he said, hey, Abram, get up, take your people with you, and leave your family's house, leave your dad's house, and go to a place I will show you.
Right.
Okay, God. Picked up and moved on. Not go to this place over here, and then I'll give you further instructions when you get there. It's just get up, go. I'll show you where eventually. Then I thought of Moses at the burning bush, where he's been a shepherd in Midian for 40 years. He fled Egypt 40 years earlier, and he's just been tending sheep. And God appears to him at the burning bush and says, hey, Mo, go get the people out of Israel. It's time. It's like, God, come on. I've been a shepherd. I can't talk so good. I don't know. Who are they even going to say? Who should I say sent me? Like, come on. There's a lot of problems here. I'm not prepared for this. God's like, just go. I got you.
Yeah.
Think of Gideon. When the angel of the Lord appears to Gideon and tells him to go fight the armies and save and deliver Israel,
Right.
Gideon's like, look, Lord, I am the weakest of my family, which is the weakest of the tribe of Israel. Like, you got, like, I cannot go do this.
Yes.
I'm nobody. But God sent him with a tiny little group of people.
Right.
He started with this big thing and sent most of them home. And God did all the work. He didn't have to lift a finger.
Right.
I think of Jeremiah. In Jeremiah 1:6, the prophet Jeremiah is talking to God, and he says, God, I hear that you want me to go be a prophet to all of the nation, but
Yeah.
I'm too young. I don't talk so good. Like, come on, God, I'm not ready for that.
Yeah.
God says, just go. I
Just
got
go.
you.
Well, you're talking about all these really amazing characters. I think of the the rich man, and I think it's Mark that's mentioned, and how he's like, go out and sell all your stuff, get rid of all your stuff. And he does it, and he's sad. He's like, didn't do it with a joyful God heart. Or I think of Lot's wife, who was told, like, let's leave this area and you'll be safe, like, get away from this sin. And instead she looks back and turns to a pillar of salt. And so you're explaining these people that God used in mighty ways, and they listened, and they were God's humble servants that were like, you're right, I can't talk well, I can't do things, who's going to listen to me? And they went out there, took that, like, like Noah. I mean, he built an ark when there was in the middle of a desert, and he did this, and he did it with a good servant heart. And the two that I mentioned, they could have had so much potential. But the fact, when you don't listen to God, and when you want to do your own thing, or when you look back and you're thinking you're missing out on all the fun, you're missing out on all the promises that God's giving you, or is potentially going to give you, because you think the past or something behind you is so much better.
Wow. Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's a good contrast. Yeah, where God guides, he provides.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen and heed his calling,
yeah,
he'll bless you.
Right.
And if you don't, you'll walk away sad, like
right.
that rich young ruler,
mm-hmm.
or you'll have a bad time, like
yeah.
Lot's wife.
Right. Or even just like speaking of the women in the Bible, if you look at Esther, she was put in this time of where they were going to kill all the Jewish people, and she was put in a position where she had she was able to get to the king's ear to say, no, these are my people, and they're good people. And God used her in such a mighty way where she was able to change literally the fate, because God led her to that spot.
Wow. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you listen to God, he will provide, and he will give you all the tools when you don't think so. I mean, speaking of Book of Esther too, it's like she was not prepared for that. She
No.
was like, and you think about it, she was not like going in there guns a-blazing. She was like, I'll throw a party for you. Okay, I'm going to throw a party for you tomorrow because I'm still not ready to like tell you what I need to say. So like there was this fear, but she did because God told her. So I agree with that statement that, yeah, if you listen to God and you actually step out in faith and just say, okay, Lord, this is what you want, then he will provide.
Yeah, and good things will follow. I'm glad that you brought up Esther. That's a really, really cool thing, because not only did good things happen for Esther immediately, mm-hmm. right? She was spared, and her family and all of her people were spared because she got rid of Haman mm-hmm. and exposed his plot. But I think it was directly because of Esther's relationship with the king mm-hmm. that led to Israel being sent back home under right. Zerubbabel and Ezra and Nehemiah.
Right.
Because it was shortly after Esther's lifetime that Israel was allowed to go home.
Right.
And I think that was only because of Esther.
Yeah.
So not only did Esther benefit from following God's direction, mm-hmm. but future generations benefited.
Right. Right.
Like Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
She gave birth she was King David's grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Because she followed God. She was a Moabitess. She wasn't even Israeli. She wasn't even Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
But she married in, and she followed God's direction
right.
and put God first, and God blessed that for both Ruth and future generations.
Right.
That's crazy cool.
Yeah, it really is. So I like that you brought up that point.
You brought it up. Or you rounded it out, I guess. So the women ultimately, to round out the point of the round stone, the women didn't need to worry about the stone, whether it was there or not, because God
right.
was calling them to do a thing,
mm-hmm.
and they were faithful to that calling,
yeah.
and God took care of it.
Took care of it.
And the stone was rolled away.
A
and they didn't have to worry
stone,
about it.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
So what was a problem, God took care of and rolled the
right.
stone away for him, that 2-ton stone.
Right.
So problem solved.
Right.
So what was the second problem, though?
The body not being there.
Right. Which,
right.
I guess in retrospect, isn't a problem.
No.
That's a blessing.
Mm-hmm. They had to keep their oils. Use it for something else.
Yeah, sure. But the bigger blessing is
Right.
that means Jesus conquered death.
Right.
And if it wasn't for Jesus' resurrection, there's no salvation, there's no sanctification or justification. And if those things don't exist, there's no heaven for us.
Right.
So Jesus paid the price and conquered death so we could live with him for eternity. So,
Right.
yeah, it's a problem the body wasn't there, but it's really better that the body wasn't there.
Right. Right. It's the promise.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. But then in verse 4,
Okay.
we're introduced to these angelic figures, right? These comforting angels.
2 men.
Yeah, two men in these white shining garments, where we're told that they're comforting the women that are there, saying,
Mhm.
"Why are you seeking the living among the dead?
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry, don't be afraid." Remember what Jesus talked about? He said this would happen.
Yeah.
Remember? Remember,
He's
ladies?
not here. Yeah.
He's risen,
Yeah.
which is cool. And then Pastor Clark talked about guardian angels a bit, brought up some scripture verses. Hebrews 1:14 talks about how the angels are ministering spirits. In Psalms 91:11, that the angels have charge over us to protect us. In Psalms 34:7, that the angels of the Lord encamp around those that fear God, and that they deliver those people.
Mm-hmm.
So we have these angels that are around to minister and comfort us, to protect us, to deliver us from these hard times and these afflictions that might come in our way. So ultimately, God's in control, and whatever God allows to happen, he makes sure that we can get through it.
So, this is a side note, real quick. They said that they were afraid. Were the women afraid?
Yeah.
And the women were afraid because the bodies weren't there.
I mean, I think that's probably one of the reasons why they were afraid. They were probably afraid because of the totality of the circumstances, right? To borrow a phrase from the cop days or legal days. But
Okay.
ultimately, I think that they were worried about how they were going to get access to the body.
Right.
It's super early in the morning. It's still dark.
Right.
Nobody's with them. They're just a group of ladies going out there with oil and stuff like that. So their hands are full. They're who knows. They don't feel prepared to roll away this 2-ton stone.
Mm-hmm.
They get there. This 2-ton stone is rolled away. The body's gone, and these two dudes in shining white garments are there.
Mm-hmm.
I would be kind of scared, because if these two guys are there, that means they probably are the ones that rolled away the stone.
Mm-hmm.
That means they're pretty strong, gnarly dudes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is a group of ladies that probably couldn't take them. If I was in that group, I would be pretty scared.
Right.
If these, I am now attributing moving a 2-ton rock to these two dudes, and they're there waiting for me.
Right.
I'm going to be pretty scared.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's why they were scared, or if they were scared because the tomb was empty. I don't know.
Yeah. Like looking at just all that was kind of interesting to me. Because, like you said, there are these big shining garments. It's like, was it so bright? Like, you got to bow your head.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they haven't slept. They've been like so sad the past few days. Like, there was just so many. And then now all of a sudden, these, like you said, these two burly dudes are there. And you're like, okay. Like, there's
Yeah.
just so much going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be scared and bow and be like, "Hey, it's
Yeah.
cool. I'm not here for trouble. What's going on?"
Yeah.
And they recognize the fear, obviously, and they
then,
comfort them
yeah.
instead of rile them up, or instead of keep it going or instigating anything.
And then the angels quote what he was saying, what Jesus had said in the past, which is pretty cool.
So cool. And that's kind of part of the cool thing about this section to me, was that, and Pastor Clark mentioned that then after, in verse 8, then they remembered his words.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to remember something, you have to first know it.
Mm-hmm.
So studying his word and knowing his word allows us to remember his word.
Mm-hmm.
And you had brought up, when we were talking about it, you had brought up Jesus' word about this very topic.
Oh, yeah. In, was it Luke 21:6, how he was mentioning the temple falling. So when all the leaders, the religious leaders, were so upset with him because he said that the temple will fall, and he was speaking about his body being the temple and the bricks falling. It's kind of interesting that, what he was crucified for, saying that he was blasphemous and getting everybody away or trying to destroy this temple, he was like, no, it's a promise that I'm going to be crucified. My body, the temple, will fall, but it will be good because it'll be rebuilt, and you all will be able to go to heaven with me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you destroy this temple, I will build it again in 3 days. That's right. And then Luke says, and he was talking about his body.
Right.
That's right. So as you were talking, that made me think of Matthew 12:39, where Jesus is talking to the people, and they say, "Show us a sign that you're from God, that you're who you say you are." And he says, "Look, the only sign you're going to get is that of the prophet Jonah. Just like he spent 3 days and 3 nights in the fish, the Son of Man is going to spend 3 days and 3 nights in the center of the earth, or the heart of the earth." And that's what happened.
Right.
So all these different things, all the times that Jesus predicted his own death and resurrection, the angels are reminding the women about. They're like, hey, Jesus has talked to you about this a lot.
Yeah.
Remember? He said he would die. He said he would raise again on the third day. Here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
I know you don't got to watch, but come on.
Yeah.
So
Right.
So they remembered his words. And that's why I know we keep talking about it, and I'm sorry.
Why?
Because I'm sure I sound like a broken record at this point, but Mark 12:30, when Jesus tells us to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and all your strength, that word, love the Lord with all your mind, this is how we love the Lord, by studying his word, by knowing his word.
To be equipped.
To be equipped and to be prepared in season and out to give a defense for what we believe.
Right, because in the world we live in, it's okay to be any other type of religion, but when you say you're Christian or believe in God, that's when it's like, no, and why? It contradicts itself. It does this. But if you're in the Word and you have an understanding of each verse, each scripture, if you can break it down the way it was supposed to be broken down, to actually study yourself, that's equipping yourself to be able to go out in the world and not be swayed. And that's really all it is. Like, don't be swayed.
I love that you said that, because it's so true. And not enough people really get that.
Right.
But the proclamation about the resurrection, that was number 4, what the angels said. I don't think we even introduced that point before we started on it. But that leads us to the 5th point.
Yeah.
Pessimism in the resurrection.
Right.
And so point 5, permission in the pessimism, not permission. Look, I can't even read my own notes. Pessimism in the resurrection.
And they're typed, so.
And they're typed notes. So the pessimism in verses 9 through 11, the women leave the tomb, they go back to where the disciples were, and they tell them everything that they saw and heard, everything they witnessed. And nobody believed them. They're like, the ladies are talking again.
They haven't slept in a few days.
The girls.
The girls, yeah. Oh, the girls just talking again. Yes, exactly.
Right.
So again, I feel for these ladies.
Yeah.
But again, they haven't slept. They're tired. Everybody's going through this emotional turmoil. And then the girls come down, want to just talk about like this. And they're like, okay, let's go see.
Yeah, and it seems like, so that's an interesting thought. So I wonder if Peter and John went to go check it out because they drew the short straws, and none of the disciples, presumably it's still pretty early.
Right.
Right, it didn't probably take very long for them. They got there, it was still dark, it was still that early in the morning. The angels only said like 2 sentences.
Right.
And then I would be running back. Like, I would be taking a nice leisure pace to get there.
Yeah.
That happens. My blood's going. I'm awake now.
Yeah.
I'd be sprinting back.
Right.
Guys, listen, all this stuff. You wouldn't believe it. Maybe you will. I don't know. Listen. And they go through it, and the guys, sure enough, they don't believe it.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, who's going to go check this out?
Right.
Peter, I'll go. John, Jesus loved me the most, I should go.
Yeah.
And then, so those two go.
Well, also we talked about this earlier too. Is Peter? You have to remember he had just denied Jesus 3 times. He was feeling all this turmoil and he was weeping and wailing and having just like, I can't believe I did that moment. And then now the women are coming down saying, hey, he's not there. And it was almost, for me, I feel like Peter was like, I'm going up there because I need to see this for myself. I need to make sure that like I'm the first one to say like, oh man, I messed up.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
And one thing that stood out to me about this pessimism response that they had is it's kind of heartbreaking to me, because it's another way to deny Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't believe what the women were saying, and the women were just recounting what they saw
Yeah.
and weaved in Jesus's words.
Right.
They said, remember, Jesus said this, that, and the other. Like, yeah, we remember that. And we just saw this, that, and the other. And they're like, okay, well, time out. Hold on.
And that's true.
So it's like
that.
another way to deny him, to doubt him. And it wasn't until after John saw the tomb that he believed, according to John, the Gospel of John, he writes. So they still weren't quite there.
Right.
And Paul talks about it in Romans 4:25. He says that, well, going back up to verse 24, he says, it shall be imputed to us who believe in him, God, who raised Jesus, our Lord, from the dead, who was delivered up because of our offenses, and was raised because of our justification. So Jesus was raised from the dead because we're justified.
Right.
And we can only get to heaven because we're justified. So if there's no resurrection of Jesus, there's no justification for our sins, there's no admission to heaven.
Right.
It's all this building block that has to be based on Jesus's first coming, Jesus's death, and Jesus's resurrection.
Right.
Those things have to happen for Christianity to matter at all.
Right.
And these guys spent 3.5 years with Jesus, following him, hanging on to his every word.
Right.
And they still didn't get it yet.
Right.
Which brings a little comfort to me, because I'm a little slow on the uptake sometimes. And, it took me too long to get to the point where I am hungry for the word like I am now. So I feel for them, and I can't be too judgy.
Yeah, but it was all these things. I mean, if you think back to the Last Supper and them, Jesus explaining how the room will be provided and the room will be ready, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" Or just how everything else was leading up to that, and they're like, "No," but then again, just like, "Okay, I believe you," or "No, Lord, I'll fight for you. I'll fight with you," and they're like, "No, that's not what's supposed to happen," and just the way all these miracles have happened in front of them, and then they're still, like you said, now he's resurrected, and they're just like feeling sorry for themselves, something where they're like not willing to take that extra few steps up that hill.
Which then brings us to point number 6, Peter's response to the resurrection. And this is where we see in verse 12, but Peter arose and ran to the tomb. And we see in the parallel account in John, chapter 20, verse 4, that John went with Peter. So those two ran to the tomb, and in John 20, we see that John stopped at the entrance to the tomb, but Peter did not. He went all the way in. Didn't stop, just blew right past him. Which I think is hilarious, because John wrote the Gospel of John, and John toots his own horn a bit. He's like, yeah, so me and Pete, we were running to get there. I mean, I got there first. No big deal.
Right. Well, I love this about Peter, too, because Peter is always been that. We've like to say that Peter's been the one that Jesus is always like, just come a little closer. You're gonna make a mess if you're not close to me. We all have one of those kids or know somebody, like a friend that's like, just stay over here. Or like in my case, I was the girls that made the mess, and it was the one that was just always in trouble or found myself in trouble. But with Peter, I love that he just like ran in. It kind of reminds me of like a little cartoon. John stops and Peter just like bumps into him, And then they kind of stumble in, but Peter went all the way in. The same way he was the first one on the water. And the way he went out there and was like, I want to do that, Jesus. I want to be with you. And Peter still is the first one to try to get in there and get closer to Jesus, even though he's messed up, even though was looking in all the other directions and sinking. He was the first one to say, save me. And he was the first one in there. He's like, I want to be closer. You could stop wherever you want to stop, but I'm going to be closer. I messed up the most. I'm going to be there to greet him.
Yeah, wow. That's great. Yeah, I like that idea. Well, and because ultimately we don't know what they were thinking, because they don't tell us what they were thinking.
Right.
So that's a great thought.
Yeah.
My dad's thought was a little more cartoonish. He's like, oh, I think Peter's this big, I always envision him this big burly lumbering guy, so they're both running, and Pete just can't stop. And John's a little more nimble and agile, and he can sprint faster and he can stop easier. And once you get Peter going, there's nothing that can stop him. So he just lumbers all the way in.
Yeah.
I like that idea. I like your idea.
It's all, I mean, it's just my imagination and
Sure.
seeing it and like how, but again, I hear Peter's story, and a lot of times, especially like just being a Christian and growing up as a Christian and messing up, but you know the word, you know the gospel, and you know that you're not supposed to be doing certain things, and you know you're supposed to be living a certain way, but you're young and you're dumb and you're like, I want to have fun too. Peter's relatable in that way, because it's like, yeah, like especially the walking on the water situation and being the one that's like, no, Lord, I'm going to be with you. I would never deny you. I'm never going to do that. And then, you know, you run to Jesus the second you know, like, gosh, I messed up. Like, you know, he's had a few days to think about everything too. And he's like, what? The girls are saying, what? I'm going to go see then. I want to see this for myself. But that's a part of Peter's character that we've been seeing, is that he is the first one to step out and get to Jesus first.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's why Pastor Clark, anytime he refers to Peter, is, you know, Peter, ready, fire, aim, right. Peter.
Yeah, and Peter knew he needed Jesus the most too.
He's like, I can't let this guy go.
Right. And Peter's like, you can't let me go.
Yeah.
I'm a mess. I've already messed up so much.
Yeah.
And I think we could all relate to Peter as like, I know I've messed up more times than I could count. Just even being a mom and like just having all our kids, and like, you know, being a mom it's new. Every stage of life is new. Every kid is different. And you're like, Lord, I messed up. Or just even now in this stage of life, it's like hard. It's rough. You think you're doing something right, but you look back and you're like, man, I could have done that so much better or different. And I could have, you know, shoulda, coulda, woulda, but God knows our hearts. And like, if we're the first ones to get to him after we mess up, then it doesn't matter. Like I keep saying, it doesn't matter how we get there, as long as we get back to him and he knows that we have given our lives and hearts to him. It doesn't matter what we've done or what it looks like, because as long as we get there, he just wants to love us and embrace us. That's what he died for, is just to be there for us. And it's like, I'm waiting for you. Just get here. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's a huge point that makes Peter even more relatable.
Yeah.
Because in 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 3, Peter, ready, fire, aim, Peter, doesn't stop at the tomb's entrance, Peter, steps out on water, Peter. He writes, blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who, according to his abundant mercy, has begotten us again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled, and that does not fade away, reserved in heaven for you, who are kept by the power of God through faith for salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time. So, because Jesus is raised from the dead, we have this living hope of eternity with him.
Yeah.
Despite our past, despite our denial and doubt and disbelief, Jesus still loves us through that, and we still have that living hope in him.
Yeah. It's amazing.
It truly is amazing. And that's where Pastor Clark ended it on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's another companion series episode.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Yeah, I think it was
I
too.
can't wait for next week to see everybody's reaction when they see him.
Yeah, the road to Emmaus, and then the road to Emmaus.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
added a D there. I was thinking the road to Damascus for some reason.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, read ahead and follow in with Pastor Clark on everything he has to say too. It's on the website, on the app, on all the things.
on all the things, that's right. Yeah. Good one, babe.
Thanks, babe.